So the one-page marketing plan, get new customers, make more money, and stand out from the crowd by Allan Dib. Introduction. What's this all about? If I had to summarize the essence of this book in one phrase, it would be the fastest path to the money. The fastest path to the money. I've purposely put this as early as humanly possible in the book because I don't want to waste your time. I know for a certainty that this opening sentence will be off-putting to a large number of people, and frankly, I'd much prefer they read someone else's business book full of ear-tickling cliches like follow your passion, work hard, hire the right people, blah blah blah. If that's what you're after, then search Amazon. There'll be a gazillion business books there for you on all these airy-fairy concepts and much more, mostly written by professional authors and researchers who've never actually built a high-growth business. This book is blatantly and unashamedly about growing your business fast and reaping the rewards of that kind of success. Running out of oxygen really sucks. As Zig Ziglar famously said, money isn't everything, but it ranks right up there with oxygen. Yup, nothing kills a business faster than a lack of oxygen, aka money. Why am I so unashamedly focused on the money getting? There are a few good reasons. Firstly, there's almost no business problem that can be solved with more money, which is handy because almost every business I know of is full of problems. Money helps you solve the vast majority of things that make business a pain in the backside. Secondly, when you've taken care of yourself, you have a chance to help others. If you didn't go into business to make money, then you're either lying or you have a hobby, not a business. And yes, I know all about delivering value, changing the world, and so on, but how much of that are you going to do if you're broke? How many people can you help? When you board an airplane and they're going through all the safety procedures, the airline attendant will inevitably get to a point that goes something like this. Should the cabin experience sudden pressure loss, oxygen masks will drop down from above your seat. Place the mask over your mouth and nose and pull the strap to tighten. If you are traveling with children or someone who requires assistance, make sure that your own mask is on first before helping others. Why fit your own mask before helping others? Because if you're slumped over your seat suffering from a lack of oxygen, one, you can't help anyone else, and even worse, two, we now have to deploy scarce resources to come and help you, otherwise you'll soon be dead. So knowing what to do. In his book titled The Book of Survival, Anthony Greenbank wrote, to live through an impossible situation, you don't need to have the reflexes of a Grand Prix driver, the muscles of a Hercules, the mind of an Einstein. You simply need to know what to do. The statistics vary on exactly what percentage of businesses fail within the first 5 years. Some estimates put it as high as 90%. However, I've never seen this statistic being quoted as anything less than 50%. That means that if we're being super optimistic, you have a 50-50 chance of still having your doors open after 5 years. However, here's where it really gets worse. The statistics take into account only businesses that completely cease trading. They don't take into account the businesses that plateau at a low level and slowly kill or make the lives of their owners miserable. Have you ever wondered why most small businesses plateau at a mediocre level? At one end of the spectrum, there's Pete the plumber who works 16-hour days, weekends, and never takes holidays while barely making enough to keep his head above water. On the other end of the spectrum, there's Joe who runs a plumbing company with 20 plumbers working for him. It seems like his primary business activity is counting the huge sums of money that keeps rolling in. It's very common for small businesses never to grow past the point at which they generate just enough profit for the owner or owners to make a modest living. It seems that no matter how hard the owner or owners try, their efforts to get to the next level just lead to frustration. At this point, one of two things happens. Either they get disillusioned or they just accept their fate. That their business is nothing more than a low paid, self created job. In fact, the reality is that many business owners would probably be better off just finding a job in their industry. They would likely work fewer hours, have less stress, enjoy more benefits, and have more holiday time than in the prison they have created for themselves. On the flip side, there are a few business owners that just seem to have it all. They work reasonable hours, have a fantastic cash flow from their enterprise, and enjoy continuous growth. Many business owners who are struggling blame their industry. It's true some industries are in decline. If you are in one of those dead or dying industries, it may be time to cut your losses and move on rather than torture yourself to death financially. This may be particularly difficult if you have been in the industry for a long time. However, for the most part, when people blame their industry, they are just playing the blame game. Some of the most common industry complaints I hear are: one, it's too competitive; two, the margins are too low; three, online discounters are taking customers away; four, advertising no longer works. However, it's rarely the industry that is truly to blame. After all, there are others in that same industry that are doing very well. So the obvious question is, what are they doing differently? Many small business owners fall into the trap described in Michael Gerber's classic book, The E-Myth Revisited. That is, they are a technician, for example, a plumber, hairdresser, dentist, and so on, and they're good at what they do. They have what Gerber described as an entrepreneurial seizure, and they start to think to themselves, why should I work for this idiot boss of mine? I'm good at what I do, I'll start my own business. This is one of the major mistakes made by most small business owners. They go from working for an idiot boss to becoming an idiot boss. Here is the key point. Just because you're good at the technical thing you do doesn't mean that you are good at the business of what you do. So going back to our example, a good plumber is not necessarily the best person to run a plumbing business. This is a vitally important distinction to note and is a key reason that most small businesses fail. The owner of the business may have excellent technical skills, but it's his lack of business skills that causes his business to fail. This is not meant to discourage people from starting their own businesses. However, you must resolve to become good at the business of what you do, not just the technical thing you do. A business can be an amazing vehicle for achieving financial freedom and personal fulfillment, but only for those who understand and master this vital distinction and figure out what they need to do to run a successful business. If you're good at the technical thing of what you do, but feel like you could benefit from some help on the business side, then you're in the right place at the right time. The whole point of this book is to take you from confusion to clarity, so you know exactly what to do to have business success. So professionals have plans. As a kid, my favorite TV show was The A-Team. In case you've never watched it, I'll give you the executive summary of 99% of the episodes. 1. Bad guys harass and threaten an innocent person or group. 2. The innocent person or group begs and pleads with the A-Team to help them. 3. The A-Team, a motley bunch of ex-soldiers, fight, humiliate, and drive away the bad guys. Episodes would invariably end with Hannibal, the brains of the A-Team, chomping down on his cigar and triumphantly mumbling, "I love it when a plan comes together." Look at any profession where the stakes are high, and you'll see a well thought out plan being followed. Professionals never just wing it. Doctors follow a treatment plan, airline pilots follow a flight plan, soldiers follow a military operation plan. How would you feel about engaging the services of any of the above professions if the practitioner were to say to you, screw the plan, I'll just wing it? Yet, this is exactly what most business owners do. Invariably, when someone makes a mess of something, it often becomes clear in the aftermath that they didn't have a plan. Don't let that be you and your business. While no one can guarantee your success, having a plan dramatically increases your probability of success. Just like you wouldn't want to be on a plane where the pilot hadn't bothered with a flight plan, you don't want you and your family relying on a business for which you haven't bothered with a business plan. Often the stakes are almost as high. Marriages, partnerships, jobs, and more are often the casualties of failed businesses. It's more than just your ego on the line, so it's time to go pro and create a plan. So, the wrong kind of plan. Early into my first business, I was smart enough to identify that a business plan was going to be important to my success. Unfortunately, that's where my smarts ended. With the help of a business consultant who would never actually run a successful business of his own, I ended up many thousands of dollars poorer, but had a document that most business owners never bother with: a business plan. My business plan was many hundreds of pages long. It had graphs, charts, projections, and much, much more. It was an awesome looking document, but essentially was a bunch of nonsense. After it was written, I shoved it in the top drawer of my desk and never saw it again, until the day we were moving offices and I had to clean out my desk. I dusted it off, flicked through it, and tossed it in the trash, angry at myself about the money I'd wasted on that phony baloney consultant. However, later when I thought about it more carefully, I realized that while the document itself was a bunch of nonsense, the process I went through with the consultant was valuable in clarifying some of the key elements in my business, particularly one key section of it called the marketing plan. In fact, a lot of what we did to create the marketing plan shaped the business and created much of our future success. More on this in a moment, but for now, let me introduce a man and his concept that's going to be the key to your business success. My friend Vilfredo Pareto and the 80-20 rule. I never had the privilege of meeting Vilfredo Pareto, mostly because he died over half a century before I was born, but I'm sure we would have been best buds. Pareto was an Italian economist who noticed that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the population. Hence, the Pareto principle, commonly known as the 80-20 rule, was born. It turns out the 80-20 rule holds true for more than just land ownership in Italy. It holds true for almost anything you care to think of. Some examples: 80% of a company's profits come from 20% of its customers. 80% of road traffic accidents are caused by 20% of drivers. 80% of software usage is by 20% of users. 80% of a company's complaints come from 20% of its customers. 80% of wealth is owned by 20% of people. Woody Allen even noted that 80% of success is showing up. In other words, the Pareto principle predicts that 80% of effects come from 20% of causes. Maybe it's just my laziness talking, but this gets me seriously excited. It's often said that necessity is the mother of invention, but I'd argue that laziness is, and my friend Wilfredo is my mentor in that pursuit. So essentially, you can cut out 80% of the stuff you're doing and sit on the couch eating nachos instead, and you'll still get most of the results you're getting. If you don't want to sit on the couch, chowing down on nachos 80% of the time, then doing more of the 20% stuff is your fast track to success. And in this context, success is equal to more money while doing less work. The 64-4 rule. If you think the 80-20 rule is exciting, the 64-4 rule will blow away your mind. You see, we can apply the 80-20 rule to the rule itself. So we take 80% of 80 and 20% of 20 and end up with the 64-4 rule. So 64% of effects come from 4% of causes. Put another way, the majority of your success comes from the top 4% of your actions. Or put yet another way, 96% of the stuff you do is a waste of time, comparatively. The most surprising thing is that the 80-20 rule and the 64-4 rule still hold up in a remarkably accurate way. If you look at wealth distribution statistics from the last century, you'll notice that the top 4% own about 64% of the wealth, and the top 20% own about 80% of the wealth. This is despite this being the information age. You'd imagine that 100 years ago, only the wealthy had good access to information, hence it's understandable why they held 80% of the wealth. Yet this wealth distribution statistic still holds up today, an age where information has been democratized and where even the poorest people have pretty much the same access to information as the wealthiest people. This proves that lack of information isn't the issue holding back the bottom 80% of business owners, it's human behavior and mindset. That certainly hasn't changed in the last 100 years. The best kept secret of the rich. In my observation of and work with numerous business owners around the world, there's one thing that differentiates the wildly successful and wealthy ones from the struggling and broke. Struggling business owners will spend time to save money, whereas successful business owners will spend money to save time. Why is that an important distinction? Because you can always get more money, but you can never get more time. So you need to ensure the stuff you spend your time on makes the biggest impact. This is called the leverage, and the leverage is the best kept secret of the rich. These big impacting leveraged activities are the things that make up the key 20% of the 80-20 rule and the 4% of the 64-4 rule. If you want more success, you need to start paying attention to and expand the things that give you the most leverage. There are various areas of your business where you could start looking for leverage points. You may look at getting 50% better at your negotiation skills. This in turn may help you renegotiate with key suppliers and get an incremental improvement in your buy price. While this is great, at the end of the day, after all that time and effort, you've still just improved your bottom line incrementally. This is not what I'd call massive leverage. We want exponential improvement, not incremental. By far, the biggest leverage point in any business is marketing. If you get 10% better at marketing, this can have an exponential or multiplying effect on your bottom line. Willie Sutton was a prolific American bank robber. During his 40-year criminal career, he stole millions of dollars and eventually spent more than half of his adult life in prison, and also managed to escape 3 times. Sutton was asked by reporter Mitch Onstad why he robbed banks. According to Onstad, he said, because that's where the money is. When it comes to business, the reason we want to focus so heavily on marketing is the same, because that's where the money is. Applying the 80-20 and 64-4 rules, your marketing plan. Back to my earlier story about the wrong type of business plan. While my business plan document ended up being a useless mess of management speak and nonsense, the part of the business planning process that proved hugely valuable to me was creating the marketing plan. The marketing plan ended up being the 20% part of the business planning process that produced 80% of the results. This has been the case in every business I've started and run since then. With this in mind, when I started coaching small business owners, a large part of my focus was getting them to create a marketing plan. Guess what? Very few of them ever carried through with it. Why? Because creating a marketing plan was a complex, laborious process that most small business owners simply won't do. So again, laziness becomes the mother of invention. I needed a way to take the core essence of the marketing planning process and make it simple, practical, and useful to small business owners. The one-page marketing plan was born. The one-page marketing plan is the 4% of effort that generates 64% or more of the result in your business. It's the 64-4 rule applied to business planning. Using this process, we can boil down hundreds of pages and thousands of hours of traditional business planning into a single page that can take as little as 30 minutes to think about and fill in. Even more exciting is that it becomes a living document in your business, one that you can stick on the wall of your office and refer to and refine over time. Most of all, it's practical. There's no management speak or jargon to understand. You don't need an MBA to create it or understand it. Sorry. The one-page marketing plan has been a marketing implementation breakthrough. I've seen compliance rates among coaching clients significantly improve. Small business owners who would have never had the time, money, or know-how to create a traditional marketing plan now have one. As a result, they've reaped the massive benefits that come from having clarity on their marketing. I'll introduce the one-page marketing plan shortly, but first I think it would be valuable to start at the beginning and not assume anything. Marketing itself is a vague term that is poorly understood even by so-called professionals and experts in the industry. So let's get a quick and simple understanding of what marketing actually is. So what is marketing? Some people think marketing is advertising or branding or some other vague concept. While all these are associated with marketing, they are not one and the same. Here's the simplest, most jargon-free definition of marketing you're ever likely to come across. If the circus is coming to town and you paint a sign saying "Circus coming to the showground Saturday," that's advertising. If you put the sign on the back of an elephant and walk it into town, that's promotion. If the elephant walks through the mayor's flower bed and the local newspaper writes a story about it, that's publicity. And if you get the mayor to laugh about it, that's public relations. If the town citizens go to the circus, you show them the many entertainment booths, explain how much fun they'll have spending money at the booths, answer their questions, and ultimately, they spend a lot at the circus, that's sales. And if you plan the whole thing, that's marketing. Yup, it's as simple as that. Marketing is the strategy you use for getting your ideal target market to know you, like you, and trust you enough to become a customer. All the stuff you usually associate with marketing are tactics. We'll talk more about strategy versus tactics in a moment. However, before we do that, you need to understand that a fundamental shift has occurred in the last decade and things will never be the same. The answers have changed. Albert Einstein was once giving an exam paper to his graduating class. It turned out that it was the exact same exam paper he had given them the previous year. His teaching assistant, alarmed at what he saw and thinking it to be the result of the professor's absent-mindedness, alerted Einstein. "Excuse me, sir," said the shy assistant, not quite sure how to tell the great man about his blunder. "Yes," said Einstein. It's about the last test you just handed out." Einstein waited patiently. "I'm not sure if you realize it, but this is the same test you gave out last year. In fact, it's identical." Einstein paused to think for a moment, then said, "Yes, it is the same test, but the answers have changed." Just as the answers in physics change as new discoveries are made, so too does the answers in business and in marketing. Once upon a time, you placed a few ads, paid a truckload of money, and your marketing for the year was done. Now you have search engines, social media, podcasts, websites, and a myriad of other things to think about. The internet has literally opened up a world of competitors, whereas previously your competitors may have been across the road, now they can be on the other side of the globe. As a result of this, many who are trying to market their business become paralyzed by the bright, shiny object syndrome. This is where they get caught up in whatever the currently hot marketing tactics are, like SEO, video, podcasting, pay-per-click or pay-per-click advertising, and so on. They get caught up with the tools and tactics and never figure out the big picture of what they're actually trying to do and why. Let them show you why this will lead to a world of pain.